Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow and I am back with an all-new video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil energy read into Luigi Mangione, the young man that is the primary suspect in the unaliving of the UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So we are going to be exploring not only the three-dimensional facts of this case, but we are also going to be looking into the soul, energetic and vibrational elements that are comprising this case, as well as the larger implications that this may have on society. And if you are keeping up with this case and you are wondering why some things just don't seem to fit or make sense, we are also going to be exploring that as well. So if this sounds good to you, please stick around, and if not, I will catch you at another video. Now, before we dive in, I'm just going to start by doing an intro, and it's going to be a rather lengthy one, but I'm really going to encourage you guys to please watch the intro because I'm going to be explaining the format of this video and explaining the way in which it has been laid out and why it has been laid out that way. Now, I'm first going to start by saying that there are timestamps down below, but I'm going to really request that you watch this video all the way through. Even if it is not in one sitting, even if you have to stop and come back to it, please watch it all the way through. The reason for that is this has been formatted in a way like a story. It's going to make sense as the story goes on and as more insight is brought into it of a behind the veil component where we are starting to see the soul, spiritual, or energetic elements that are comprising the complexities of this case. So even if you're tempted to hop around, I'm really going to ask you not to. Especially because if you are new here, some of the topics that we are going to be exploring are of an esoteric or metaphysical nature, and to make sense of it, one concept is going to build off of another one as I go on and I go deeper into it. So please, do yourself a solid, watch this video all the way through. Now, in case you are new here and you don't know what you're getting into, I'm going to take a moment just to introduce myself. As I had said at the top of the video, my name is Faye, and I am an energy reader, an intuitive, a medium, an astral traveler, and a remote viewer. And my special sauce, if you will, as an energy reader, is seeing behind the three-dimensional veil and exploring the soul, spiritual, energetic, or vibrational elements that are comprising the 3D world that we see around us. That is why we are not just going to be looking into the three-dimensional facts of this case, but exploring what Luigi's soul came here to do in this lifetime as Luigi, and why this case has so much prominence and has really captured the consciousness of, I would say, certainly a lot of Americans, but maybe even people worldwide. Because as I have shared with you in the past, anytime there is any sort of a case that is so big and so grand and so over the top, there is some sort of underlying message or takeaway for the collective as a whole. We are going to be looking into all of that, I promise you, but please watch this video all the way through. Now, I'm also just going to say that this is very much a community, and if you encounter me using a phrase or a terminology of some kind that you are not familiar with, please feel free to comment down below, because I do take the time to read any and all comments that are left, and I will respond to all of them. And that may include just a brief response, explaining something or answering a question, but it may also include where I am sharing some of my previous content in which I do a deeper dive into an explanation of a question that has been asked. Now, lastly, I'm going to ask that if you find yourself enjoying this video at any time, please do click the like button. It really does help this channel grow, and I just want to get this information out there to as many people as possible. So your contribution by clicking that like button really does help. And lastly, if you think there is anybody that would enjoy this video or any of my content, please do share it with them. Now, before we get into the energy reading on Luigi, I am first going to start by sharing some three-dimensional information into this case. Now, even if you yourself are keeping up or loosely keeping up with the facts of this case, I'm really going to encourage that you watch this. Even more so if this really, maybe you're tuning in from another country or you just really haven't been paying attention to it. Not only am I going to be explaining the 3D facts of the case, but a lot of the 3D facts of the case are going to pertain to the energy reading as well. So to enable you to have the best viewing experience in this video, please do watch this portion as well. So here we go. Luigi Mangione is a 26-year-old that is the police's primary suspect in the unaliving of the UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, Luigi was his high school's valedictorian, and he later went on to get not just one graduate degree, but 2 graduate degrees in computer science. And this was obtained from the University of Pennsylvania. So this is an intelligent young man, certainly book smart because he was his class's valedictorian, and he did go on not only to complete a college degree, but to obtain 2 graduate degrees as well. Now, those of him who knew him prior to him becoming the primary suspect had nothing but glowing things to say about him until he had gone off the grid sometime in 2023, during which time he had stopped responding to texts and calls. Now, he had stayed at a hostel using a fake ID prior to allegedly shooting Brian Thompson outside of a New York City hotel on December 4th, 2024. A manhunt was underway for days prior to Mangione being recognized by McDonald's employees in Pennsylvania. They had called the police, which led to his arrest on December 9th, 2024. On him was a firearm matching the one used on Thompson, as well as a manifesto which seemed to have explained why he had committed the crime that he had committed. However, if you have been following the case, many people seem to express a sentiment that some of the facts in the case made little to no sense, such as why he had used 2 different jackets, one that he wore prior to the shooting and one that he had changed into after the shooting, which seemed to show some level of wanting to evade detection, as well as using a fake ID for the hostel that he had checked into, using cash at the Starbucks that he had visited prior to allegedly shooting Thompson. But then, after going through all of these measures to evade detection, why the police had later found his fingerprints on a water bottle near the crime scene, as well as when he was found, he had a gun as well as a manifesto on his person. So which is it? Is he a mastermind that was doing his best to evade detection but just slipped up? Or was he maybe not the mastermind at all? Like, which is it? Because some of the facts just don't seem to make a lot of sense. In addition to that, many online have shared their disbelief that this is in fact the same person, because the people in the various different photos released by the police appeared to have some sort of discrepancies. Like, I'm even going to share with you, because someone had shared this with me. They were showing that when he was arrested, it seemed like he had a unibrow, but the photo that was released by the police, like it appeared as if there really was like a strong delineation between the 2 eyebrows, as well as, is there a bump on the nose? Is there not a bump on the nose? The aforementioned 2 different jackets. There seem to be a lot of discrepancies in the case here. Or are people only seeing what they want to? In addition to that, many others have shared their support of Mangione, even contacting his attorney and expressing interest in paying for his legal defense. Recently, wanted posters have been photographed in and around New York City with other major corporation CEOs' photos on them. So as in depicting that major corporation CEOs are wanted, and on the poster, it is actually going into detail of what they are wanted for. We will touch on this shortly. Police have also been reaching out to CEOs of other insurance companies and letting them know they perhaps should beef up their security lest a similar fate befall them. And in a deeply divided country, many have in fact expressed a feeling of unitedness over this. Because among other stories that are being shared, people are also sharing stories of their insurance claims that have been denied. And many are now voicing an opinion that private insurance in the United States of America is a scam. Now, if you yourself are tuning in from another country and you don't know the way in which healthcare in the United States works, I'm going to do a brief explanation of it. Please do not share this part. It is essential to the energy reading portion, and certainly something that I'm going to share momentarily into Brian Thompson as well, as to why he may in fact have been targeted for this unaliving. Now, I'm actually paraphrasing a segment of something that someone had shared with me on Candace Owens, because I thought she had done an excellent job in explaining the way that private health insurance in the United States works. So first and foremost, let's say somebody goes into Target, they need paper towels, they go in, they see that Target is selling paper towels for $9.99 for a 6-pack, and they're like, that's just too much, I don't want to pay it. So they leave, they go into the dollar store, and they get a 6-pack for $6 or $5 or however many dollars it is. So when somebody has the price put forth in advance, we can shop around for where we want to give our business to and the amount of money that we want to spend on something. However, everything in United States medical systems are kind of like veiled in smoke. So if somebody is going to be calling their doctor and asking how much does a procedure cost, they're not going to get a straight answer. Not unless they are paying out of pocket and they don't have any health insurance. So for example, you might be told, I don't have any health insurance, I need to come in and have a procedure done. The doctor will tell you it's $500 or $1,000, and which you know that you are responsible for the entire amount. However, if somebody is actually going to be going through their insurance company, they will be told by the billing department of the doctor's office, because all doctors have a billing department, we don't know how much it's going to cost until we send the bill to your insurance company. And until we hear back from them how much of the claim they're willing to pay. So it's a bit of a mystery when going through insurance, how much your insurance is actually going to cover of a medical procedure that you have deemed to be medically necessary. But here's the thing, what if you go into your doctor's office or you go to the emergency room, or you go to urgent care, and then after going there, your health insurance company has deemed that your visit was not medically necessary, they can decide to cover 0% of your visit, which could be in the tens of thousands of dollars. Now, this is in addition to the fact that here in the United States, we pay a monthly amount towards our insurance company. So we are paying into it, so that way in the event that we have some sort of a medical procedure that is necessary and we have to go and we have to get it taken care of, that ostensibly then the insurance company is going to pay for the procedure that we had done. So you pay in monthly, so that way if you have a procedure that's done, you're not responsible for the full amount. And the amount that one pays could vary. So it could be for an individual anywhere from maybe $500 to $700 a month. And for a child, it could be, let's say, anywhere from $400 to $600 a month. So a family of 4 could be paying monthly Whether they need any sort of medical intervention or not, they could be paying in excess of $2,000 a month, again, whether they need to have a procedure or not. But then, in the event that they need to have a procedure done, they don't know how much it will cost in advance, and they also don't know until the procedure has been done how much of the procedure their insurance has covered. This is why many people are coming to the conclusion that private health insurance is a scam. Like, they're paying into it monthly only to have to continue to pay into it, and it's unknown how much they're going to have to pay if something catastrophic truly does happen, and if their insurance company will cover it at all. Because again, it has been revealed somebody could go into urgent care or be checked into an emergency room, only then for the insurance to deem that it was not medically necessary and to cover 0% of it. And then they go into debt because they're on the hook for thousands of dollars. Now, also, in addition to that, because there is no level of transparency, you can go to CVS or Target and you can purchase ibuprofen, a bottle of 20 pills for $10. However, in the hospital, they're not going to give you the same price that you would pay in CVS or Target. That same ibuprofen or Tylenol pill, they could charge you $100 for. But at the time that you're there, if you need the pain medication, you're not going to be sitting there and asking, how much are you actually in fact charging me for this? There is so much smoke and mirrors associated with private health insurance. Now, let's talk a little bit about Brian Thompson and UnitedHealthcare specifically. So here we go. UnitedHealthcare is a health insurance company that insures over 70 million Americans in the United States alone, and they are in fact the largest health insurance in the United States. Now, this number of 70 million comprises both their private insurance holders as well as, I believe it's called Medi-Cal, which is free insurance that elderly people receive once they hit a certain age. Now, as much as one might want to believe that private health insurance companies exist for altruistic purposes, such as providing health insurance coverage for people that need it, health insurance companies are actually privately owned, and their primary responsibility is not in fact to the people that they are insuring, but it is to the shareholders of the corporation. How do we know this? This, what I'm about to share with you right now, was acquired off of UnitedHealthcare's website. So I obtained this information out of the horse's mouth itself, one could say. So in 2022, UnitedHealthcare had revenues of $324.1 billion with a B dollars. Revenues, as in profit. However, in 2023, their revenues had increased over 15%, and they had revenues earned in 2023 of $371.6 billion with a B dollars, obtained off of UnitedHealthcare's website directly. Now, they have come under fire, and there have been a number of lawsuits brought against UnitedHealthcare. Why, you may be wondering? Here's why. While the exact numbers are hidden, some have accused UnitedHealthcare of denying rates being higher than the national average. Now, we do know what the national average is, which is that 1 out of every 7 claims are denied. Not one out of every 7 people that file a claim. 1 out of every 7 claims are denied. That's the national average. So if a person has a lot of health complications and they're going through their insurance, average, 1 out of every 7 claim will be denied. So again, while the exact numbers are hidden, some have accused UnitedHealthcare's denial rate being even higher than the national average. Now, UnitedHealthcare uses an artificial intelligence model called NH-Predict, as well as a complicated algorithm to determine which claims are approved and which ones are denied. And this has been revealed through some legal cases that have been brought against UnitedHealthcare, that their post-operation denial rate, so this is when somebody is perhaps, one could say, in the most vulnerable time because it's after they have had some sort of a medical procedure. So this could be, for example, where their doctor says, we want the patient to be here recovering from the procedure for 5 days, and then the insurance come back and says, no, we're only approving 2 days or 3 days. Or the doctor says, we're going to put you on pain medications for 10 days, and the insurance company comes back and they say, we're only approving it for 3 days. So their post-op denial rate rose from 10.9% in 2020 to 22.7% in 2022. This is the post-op denial rate only. This is not the other claims. This is strictly limited to the post-op denial rate. And as I had said, UnitedHealthcare is facing a number of lawsuits over the use of the artificial intelligence that they use. And one such lawsuit under discovery noted that 90% of the algorithms were reversed on appeal, and that UnitedHealthcare wrongfully denied elderly patients care by, quote, overriding their treating physician's determinations based on an AI model that defendant knows has a 90% error rate, end quote. So these legal cases that have been brought against UnitedHealthcare is ascertaining that UnitedHealthcare knows definitively that their AI models are getting the claims wrong 90% of the time, but they have done nothing to change the artificial intelligence nor the algorithm that they are using. This could certainly lead to a lot of hostility directed towards them. Now, it is also important to note that it is not only UnitedHealthcare that is under fire, as a health insurance company in the United States by the name of Cigna has also found itself in multiple lawsuits as well over the use of artificial intelligence. But again, whether it's Cigna or UnitedHealthcare, when there are publicly available lawsuits and the discovery that has been made through them, that is reflecting the fact that Thompson, ostensibly as the company's CEO, as well as the principal members of the board and perhaps even the shareholders know that the AI is getting it wrong 90% of the time, can certainly lead to a lot of ill will, especially when faced with the fact that Brian Thompson, as the CEO of the company, his salary was $10.2 million annually, which also included bonuses as well as stock options. So he was being rather handsomely compensated for the assurance of $371.6 billion of revenue in 2023. Now, this is going to conclude the three-dimensional portion on UnitedHealthcare and Brian Thompson, as well as Luigi Mangione. We are now going to be getting into the energy reading portion on him. Again, please watch this video all the way through in the order that I have laid it out, because the information builds on itself, and as we get deeper and deeper into it, it will make more and more sense. So here we go. Now, even though what I'm about to share with you right now is something that any number of the news sources that are reporting on this have actually stated, it came in the energy reading portion as well. And it's notable, and I'm going to explain why. But the very, very first thing that was shown to me when I had connected to Luigi's energy is that he grew up with money and to a wealthy family. So it wasn't a question if he would have clothes to wear or food to eat, because he knew he would, because he always did. He did not grow up wanting for anything, and he knew that more or less within reason he could have what he wanted, but certainly what he needed. But whereas with some people growing up without any level of worry or concern about where their next meal is coming from could lead to a malaise of character or laziness, or certainly one could say a sense of entitlement, for Luigi, it did not, because he had no interest in being a lazy, rich kid. In fact, it acted as some sort of a catalyst, and it had stoked a fire from deep inside of him to want to do more, to want to explore more, both of himself as well as the world, and maybe even have the ability to make some sort of an indelible impression on the world. One could say he has. More on this. I promise you we're getting there. And it was a journey for him, but he got there. So one could say that the privilege that he grew up with actually acted as a catalyst for his own internal self-discovery. And once I had connected to his energy, now this is after his arrest, because I, as an energy reader, needed his name to connect to his energy. Now, it's not to say if this would have been like the next DB Cooper, and this is somebody that had never been found, and it's like 20 years later, and we still never had the suspect taken into custody. It's not to say that I couldn't, kind of look into the energy of the person and kind of build out like a character profile about them energetically. Similar, one could say, to the way in which the FBI does it with profiling. But instead of using the three-dimensional facts, I would be using the energetic profiling to build out a character profile into the person. But because I had his name, and that kind of acted as a 3D anchor or tether into his energy, once I had there goes one of my crystals. Once I had in fact connected to his energy, I found that his energy felt incredibly resolute. There was a certain level of stillness inside of him. And even though he had been arrested at this point, his energy was not shown to me as being nervous, not in the least. He was not antsy. He, in fact, was not even necessarily in shock. He just was. And it was shown to me that he did not, in fact, think much of the fact that he had been arrested, but it is not because he had a break with reality, and he did not understand that he had been arrested and he was in police custody. No matter what some people are starting to come out and say about him, or speculate or hypothesize that this was a break with reality that he had because perhaps he's suffering from schizophrenia. This was not shown to me with him at the time of his arrest, nor the period thereafter. Again, he did not suffer any sort of a break with reality. And it is not because he did not understand the potential trouble that he is in, but this is in fact because it's who Luigi is. When he lines up with something, he does it. And he does not second guess his commitment to it. Nor does he spend time wondering if it was the right thing to do. Now, strictly in a three-dimensional sense, this is evidenced by the fact that he has acquired not just one graduate degree, but 2 graduate degrees as well. So this is somebody that's committed. It's like, not only am I going to get a college degree, not only am I going to get one advanced degree in computer science, he actually went on to get two. So when he lines up energetically with something and decides that he's going to commit to it, he commits to it. He does it all the way. So he is very much the kind of person that allows the chips to, as the expression goes, fall where they may. So his being in police custody at this time was the chips just falling where they fell, because he understands very much this is just the way the natural order of the world works. Now, Luigi is not a stupid man or young man, but this also goes beyond book smarts or academics, because certainly one could make the case, okay, he was high school valedictorian. So what does that tell us about him? That tells us that this is a person that they know how to study for tests. They know how to, if you will, fit into the system and play the system to get to some sort of an end goal, which in his case might have been being valedictorian. But his intelligence goes beyond book smarts and academic intelligence, because it was shown to me that he is in fact both street smarts intelligent as well as highly empathic. And behind his smile and good looks is actually a person who deeply cares, and he sometimes feels at odds with the world that he has been born into, and certainly into the environment that he was raised in. Because, as it has been noted, both at the top of this energy reading, as well as with any number of 3D publications that are sharing, he did grow up in a family that has wealth. He did not grow up wanting for anything. But him growing up in this kind of environment actually left him feeling deeply at odds within himself. Because there was a part of him that could see, first of all, how easy it would be to fall back on just being some rich kid's son, and how enticing that could be. But there was also a very real part of himself that really felt called to do more and not to fall back on the fact that he was from a wealthy family. But he did know that he would have an easy life nonetheless, or he certainly had the potential to have an easy life nonetheless. But he also realized there was a certain wrongness to how that felt to him. And because he is a feeling-oriented person that allows his emotions to guide him, even though he grew up in a wealthy family and around other wealthy kids, he felt it in his bones, the wrongness of that. But it was without any overwhelming evidence to support it, or daily reminders that others do not necessarily live that way. Now, what does it mean, the wrongness of it? To explain it, I'm actually going to compare, let's say, for example, we have a very wealthy CEO that lives in a luxury high-rise in New York City. It's a high-rise that has a doorman, it has, laundry service, it has, you can have people like even go grocery shopping for you, you can have maid service. And these luxury penthouses could go for many, many, many millions of dollars. But because this is Manhattan, the CEO doesn't necessarily have like a private car that's taking him. Maybe he lives close enough to his work that he could actually end up walking there. So he leaves his penthouse every morning and he goes to a Starbucks, and he's living his luxury penthouse. He goes to Starbucks. He can afford anything that he wants. It's never a concern when he swipes his card. Is his card going to actually work at Starbucks? But on his way between his luxury penthouse and Starbucks, he might be crossing or passing or walking past any number of homeless people. So it's a person that lives in luxury, deals with luxury. Maybe he's like an investment banker, so he's actually, surrounded by other people's financial wealth on a day-to-day basis. But he's also certainly exposed to or surrounded by the very real potentiality that there's homeless people that live in the city. So it's not where Luigi lived this kind of a life and he might have necessarily been exposed to the way in which the world had worked, the way that this fictitious CEO that I'm mentioning has, but he, without even seeing it or being confronted with it on perhaps a daily basis, he could feel it in his bones. There was some level of wrongness to it, even if he couldn't put his finger on what it was. So Luigi, despite the fact that he was not necessarily confronted with this on a daily basis, did go out seeking alternative experiences and lifestyles outside of his little bubble, because he did in fact want to see how other societies lived, or how he could live in a more meaningful sort of a way. And this decision was guided by his feeling or his intuition of the wrongness. And again, here's the thing. This is not me making some sort of a judgment call about people that grow up being wealthy. It's not like I'm saying it's wrong that these people grow up and they're wealthy while there's still poverty playing out in the world. It's not my judgment to make. That's number one. Number two, if I ever share my opinion, I will say this is my opinion. This is actually, in fact, not my opinion. This is the way the information was shared to me once I was connected to Luigi's energy. So from his point of view, there was some wrongness, even if he couldn't put his finger on what it was. And the wrongness was the understanding that he grew up being so wealthy, but he knew that other people weren't wealthy the same way that he was. We're not going to have the same level of experiences and opportunities that he was. So from his perspective, there was some level of wrongness associated with it. So this so-called wrongness from Luigi's perspective of society and America was really some sort of a wake-up call to him. And it was a wake-up call in his recognition and his awareness. He didn't necessarily have to live that way. And he didn't have to live any way he didn't want to, but he did understand very fundamentally and very deeply that others did not necessarily have that luxury, or that was not any sort of an option for them. And that deeply disturbed him. Because again, he is in fact a highly empathic person. Despite the fact that he allegedly, or is certainly being accused of the crime of unaliving Brian Thompson, and you might be looking at it and you might be saying, well, how empathic can he in fact be if he is found to be guilty of unaliving Brian Thompson? But also look at it this way. Why did I go into all of that detail at the top of the video in explaining that UnitedHealthcare, and of course not just UnitedHealthcare, but all health insurance companies, their primary purpose is not to serve the people that they are insuring. It is to guarantee increased revenues year to year for their stockholders and their shareholders and the board that are the board of trustees that sit upon it. That's who their primary obligation is to. And just like I have easily acquired this information off of UnitedHealthcare's website, that means anybody can as well. And anybody that was starting to wake up the way Luigi was starting to wake up might have seen that there was some level of injustice in terms of the way that the people that are paying for the health insurance are being treated, while the stockholders and the shareholders are raking it in. And certainly Brian Thompson with a annual salary of over $10 million was. Now, why am I pointing this out? It's just to show that not everything is quite so black and white, right? Like, we could be, with our three-dimensional eyes, looking at the fact that he unalived a person, and we could be, you know, as certainly some people are saying, but he unalived a person. It kind of begs the question, and certainly a conversation I've had with people when talking to them about this. If somebody had the ability to go back and unalive Hitler prior to World War II, would somebody have done it? We could be making the case, whoever would have done it, but they unalived a person. But what if they had unalived a person knowing how detrimental, strictly in a three-dimensional level, the actions of one person could in fact be? Food for thought. So, thank you, universe, for punctuating that. I went off on a tangent. Excuse me, guys. Hold on. I gotta pick up where I was. So Luigi had realized he didn't have to live any way he didn't want to, but he did understand that others did not necessarily have this same luxury. And this was something that really irked him. But it was all with the understanding that he couldn't necessarily do anything about it. And it was shown to me as always being like an itch that he could not quite scratch, or like it was just out of his reach. And more than anything, he wanted to reach it. And more than anything, he wanted to make a contribution and do something that mattered. He wanted to make a difference. So he set out to do just that. But why? Why? Behind the veil, because that's what we look at here. Not just the energy reading into a person, but what was going on behind the veil on a soul, spiritual, or energetic level that comprises the three-dimensional expression of those energies and what they are playing out in the 3D world that we are observing. So, why did he want to make a difference behind the veil? And it is shown to me that Luigi's soul came here in this lifetime to inhabit the body of a person named Luigi Mangione to be a disruptor. He came here to shatter the illusions that some of us still have and that some of us still cling to in the 3D material world. So he is, if you will, the anti-Ted Kaczynski, who was also known as the Unabomber. So whereas Ted Kaczynski was brilliant, but broken, and he lived like a hermit in the woods, and once he was captured, he looked disheveled and unkempt, Luigi is young and good-looking, in shape, and from a well-to-do family. Now, if you want to learn more about Ted Kaczynski in a Behind the Veil component, I have previously looked into him, and that video is linked down below. If you would like to go back and see it, or if you've seen it and you would like to refresh your memory on it, it is an incredibly insightful video. And even though I am absolutely biased because it's mine, I do think it merits a view. So one could say that Luigi, being young and good-looking, in shape, and from a well-to-do family, acted as him being some sort of anti-Ted Kaczynski. But whereas many of us, if not most of us, were still incredibly deep asleep when Ted Kaczynski was most active, and certainly not necessarily awake enough to question anything at that time, many more of us are awake now. So who better to capture the consciousness of our collective attention on a big grand scale than this young, good-looking man. And it is precisely because of his good looks that this case, at least in part, has succeeded in capturing our collective consciousness. But also, as I have previously pointed out, I'm sorry. I'm laughing because we're talking about, being awake, and how many of us are awake, or how many of us are not awake, or how many of us are waking up. And I was just listening to one of my neighbors that is fully enmeshed in the 3D. And I mean, as much as I love to drop a good F-bomb, holy fucking hell, does he put my sailor's mouth to shame and curses every opportunity that he gets, and like yells at meter maids and all of that. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes. And anyway, I don't know if you actually heard it. This was like a complete aside. But a moment ago, I started laughing because I was actually just listening to him as he was coming into the building. I was listening to him in his low vibe state, just like being very angry about things. And I find it to be ironic because, again, we're talking about like waking up and all of that and vibrations, and it's all going to come into play a little bit later on. So I just want to call out the universe. Thank you again, universe. Thank you to divine timing for really bringing in such supportive elements that support so many of the metaphysical topics that we explain here. Thank you, universe. So, back to Luigi. So, who better then to capture the consciousness on a massive scale than this good-looking young man? And it is precisely because of his good looks that this case, at least in part, has captured our collective consciousness. But also, as I have previously pointed out in some of my other videos, anything so big and notable that does capture all of our consciousness serves a piece in a much bigger puzzle. And it is a piece that supersedes just what is playing out between the two souls that may comprise the elements that are capturing our collective consciousness. So, to give you another example, this is it's timely and it's relevant because what has recently been coming out is with the Menendez brothers, that whereas in their first trial, a lot of the allegations of abuse had not been believed and had been discredited, and that was part of what had led to the conviction of those two brothers, it is now coming out to light that in fact the allegations of abuse were not made up. And there was credible evidence that at least one of the brothers had gone to cousins and had confided many years prior to the boys unaliving their parents that they were being abused by their parents. So now the District Attorney of Los Angeles has decided that the case should go under review and maybe they should be resentenced or maybe even retried now with the new information that has come to light. So that was a case that really captured all of our consciousness and all of our attention at that time. There was some sort of an interplay of the souls where the Menendez brothers had unalived their parents. So there was a soul contract at play between the Menendez brothers and their parents, but they also had a soul contract outside of what was going on with the parents to come into this lifetime as those two boys to commit this act, have it be so big and so notable and so well known on a worldwide scale that it was going to capture our consciousness, because anytime there is a case that is so big that it does capture our consciousness or it feels like we can't look away, there's a soul contract on the perpetrator of that event's soul, knowing they're going to come in and they are going to commit this act because it is for the betterment of humanity, believe it or not. So while there was some sort of soul contract between Luigi and Brian Thompson, there was also a soul contract at play with Luigi's soul and his decision to come in and to commit this, allegedly to unalive Brian Thompson. Because anytime, first and foremost, there is the unaliving at the hands of another, and it's not, for example, like due to old age or like natural events, or sickness or anything like that. Anytime a person is unalived at the hands of another, behind the veil, what we are not told or what we do not see or what we do not know is behind the veil, those two souls agreed prior to being born to come into this lifetime and to have those events play out between the two of them. So, while there was an agreement prior to, even despite the age gap between the two of them, right? Brian Thompson, I think, was 50 years old. Luigi is 26 years old. So it's a roughly half a life age gap between the two of them. It's not necessarily like you literally just hop from one incarnation into another without any downtime in between, because that's not the way it's been shown to me. There's a post-life bazaar in which you can kind of like hop around different vendors or different like stations, if you will, and we have the ability to first and foremost see our past incarnation as if we are watching a movie. So it's without the heavy 3D human emotions attached to it. So it's literally like watching a movie about people you just happen to know. You can also see all of the mysteries of the universe. You can also, chill out with God. You can literally just kick it back with God and be healed by God's divine healing and magnificent energy. So many, if not most of us, don't just like hop from one incarnation to another one. There's time in between. And there is even time in which we can, conversate energetically with the other souls on the other side, some of them which are souls that we have had other incarnations with. So we can kind of, kick back with them. Like, kind of imagine the way you're going to go meet up with a girlfriend and, schmooze. But in this case, it's souls on the other side schmoozing, and they're like, oh, I just finished my post-life summary. I think I'm going to come back again. I think I'm going to do this. We got some unfinished business to work through. Do you want to come back with me? Do you want to work through this again? Should we do it? What do you say? Or am I going to do this alone? You'll sit this out and, we'll catch up in another lifetime and we'll work through our karmic shit. And if you want to learn more about this, there's a video linked down below about that. So there was this soul contract playing out between both Luigi as well as Brian Thompson, but there was also a soul contract with Luigi on his part to come in and allegedly commit this crime. Because that's the way soul contracts work, especially something as big and notable that it is capturing the consciousness of all of us. That soul has agreed to come in and to play their part in what they are doing for the evolution and betterment of society. So for Luigi, there were a number of contributing factors from previous lives that led to this point in him wanting to come back in this lifetime as Luigi and allegedly commit this crime. Because it was shown to me that he had a number of incredibly notable past lives, including, but not limited to, being a casualty of war, being a private in a war, being a completely expendable member, like maybe literally being the front lines and being one of the first ones that are going to be unalived, being that or viewed to be that expendable. But imagine not where you're looking at the person as if they're expendable, but that's still a human life. That's still a human soul. And the frustration then therefore that soul would experience in feeling as if they just came to be expendable. So he has had many notable past lives, not limited to, but certainly including being an expendable member in wars and having been unalived in them, and thus his soul carried with it a feeling of disconnectedness from his meaning and purpose, because his soul felt it had not had the opportunity to live a fuller and meaningful life that included things beyond just being unalived in a war. So his soul felt frustrated at the lack of seeing things through and the lack of completion because of the unaliving that he has experienced at a young age in so many of his previous incarnations. So his soul simply wanted more. And even if the more it would experience would come at a price. But in this case, in this lifetime as Luigi, the price would not be his life like it had in previous incarnations, but it would be the cost of his freedom. To live, but not to be completely free. To accomplish his goal, but to experience a different kind of frustration thereafter. Because certainly it's one in which he doesn't have freedom right now while he's in police custody. And certainly the potential of one where he's going to be incarcerated, maybe even until the end of his lifetime. So it's one where he gets to live out his meaning and purpose, but it's one where there's a different kind of frustration that's going to be felt because it's a frustration at the lack of freedom, but at least it's where the soul gets to live. Do you see the complexities of the way in which we create our experiences on the 3D material plane? Because I remind you, we are not hapless pinballs dropped into a pinball machine getting whacked around by the pinball machine. We are the cosmic creator of the realities that we have, and we are the cosmic creators of the lifetimes that we have on the earth plane. And it's complex. The way that a soul could choose to take things on, to have the full experiences of what maybe it didn't have in a previous lifetime, but how it could still include hardship. And Luigi's soul has not chosen an easy path. And as a result of his life in the 3D, while certainly including gifts, such as his good looks, being in shape, and coming from a wealthy family, also include pain and physical suffering. And it is precisely the pain and the physical suffering that he experienced which led to a dark night of his soul. And during which time his energy was shown to me as being squeezed, thus eradicating and stripping his soul bare of the elements that did not serve him any longer. This was kicked off by an injury that he had sustained, which necessitated some sort of a medical procedure on his part. And from that point forward, he was awakened, if you will, or another way of saying it is activated. So if you're wondering if he was perhaps activated by MK Ultra to be a servant of Team Darkseid in committing a false flag to increase fear lived here on the earth plane, such as what may happen in school shootings, and how maybe the perpetrators of those events are activated through MK Ultra because they are servants of Team Darkseid. But that's also where there's going to be the unaliving of a many number of people, and sometimes little people, because what better way to negatively capture our consciousness? Compare and contrast that to this case, where he didn't want to go by way of what a Ted Kaczynski had done in using an explosive, because that could lead to the injury or the unaliving of somebody that was in fact innocent. This was targeted and directed at just one person. So he was awoken by the dark night of his soul that was kicked off by an injury that he had sustained. But he wasn't activated by MK Ultra. He was awakened, if you will, to why his soul chose to come here. And why his soul chose to come here and be Luigi Mangione that allegedly committed this crime. And it is not a coincidence that all of this is happening at the same time that allegations have come out against Jay-Z as having had non-consensual sex with a child. Nor is it a coincidence that is happening at the same time that P. Diddy, is actually incarcerated himself for, I don't know if I can say the words, but it's trafficking that has to do of a sexual nature. Nor is it a coincidence that it is happening when celebrities have shown themselves to be out of touch and losing relevance. Because the false idols are being exposed, Hollywood has lost its shine and its glimmer, and people now are far too awake to the satanic and demonic elements in the music industry. So simply put, Hollywood is done, rock stars are done, and a new era is in fact being born and ushered in right now. So if Hollywood is done and rock stars are done, who's then going to take their place, if anyone? So with this new era being ushered in and born at this time, it was shown to me that justice seekers are the new rock stars. But not just justice seekers, but it could also be the people that are representing justice seekers, such as attorneys. There's an attorney, I forget his first name, but his last name is very notable, and that's why I remember it. I think his last name is Busby. He's an attorney in Texas, and he is the one that is representing over 20 people that are bringing the legal suit against P. Diddy. So we could say that the people that, unfortunately, at least in the three-dimensional understanding of what they endured at the hands of, let's say, a P. Diddy, but again, understanding it was some sort of a soul contract, but we could say that those people that are bringing a suit against P. Diddy are justice seekers, right? They want justice for what had been done to them. But the attorney with the last name Busby is also a justice seeker because he is representing them. But justice doesn't only have to be of a criminal nature, because we are going to start to see people wanting to clean up the world and make some sort of a positive, indelible impression on the earth plane. There's people that are going to want to clean up the ocean, that they're in fact doing it on their free time now on weekends. But imagine if they had funding from Team High Vibe that they could actually do it on a big grand scale. That's creating some sort of a balance and justice in the world and to the world. People like that are also going to be the new rock stars. It's not just people that are going to be cleaning up the ocean. It's people that are going to be going into architecture and building, because they're going to want to build, first and foremost, much more sustainable, but also inspirational and beautiful dwelling conditions for people where we can actually live in harmony and where we are more connected to nature than in a way in which we are disconnected from nature. Those are people that are going to be creating some sort of a balance as well. So justice seekers that are being born right now and into this new era are going to take on any number of different appearances and different ways in which they are going to be represented. But all of them, irrespective of what they're pursuing, if it is of a high vibe nature, maybe it's even healing. It's getting away from like synthetic Western medication and going back to our roots and learning to heal with energy, or learning to heal with essential oils or herbs. That's creating balance, and it's of a high vibe nature. So anything like that is going to be creating balance for the way in which we are living right now is a form of justice. And all of these justice seekers to create balance and to right the wrongs that have been done upon us are in fact the new rock stars. And as we evolve and as our vibration rises, wow, I butchered that. I am so sorry. The justice seekers are the new rock stars as we evolve and as our vibration rises. Sorry, guys. And while, I gotta say this because I cannot not say this, while violence is not the answer, and I do not condone Luigi's actions on a strictly three-dimensional level, is this action of him allegedly unaliving Brian Thompson with one of those pow-pow devices, is this not the shot heard around the world to reference a 17 drop? Many of us thought that the shot heard around the world was the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. But did that wake people up? Did that reveal the level of how people were woken up? Or is this maybe not the shot heard around the world? Because did this not reveal just how many of us are truly awake right now? Because in so many online comments have I seen, in 5 days' time, they were able to capture this guy. They have access to all of his social media, his X account, his Goodreads account, his everything. But we still don't know a thing about the assassinator-to-be of Donald Trump. Is this not revealing the hypocrisy that exists? That we are maybe, not us, if you're awake and you're watching this, but maybe a little bit more concerned about the welfare of a CEO than a former and future president of the United States? So yes, Luigi is a disruptor, but I remind you, being a disruptor does not guarantee an easy life, because the role of a disruptor, similar to the role of a starseed, includes hardships that are designed to awaken them, and is done so through stripping them bare of what they are not, so that they can remember exactly who they are and what they came to do. And if you are unfamiliar with what a starseed is, it is a soul that comes perhaps from other areas in the known universe or unknown universe, maybe even from other planets. And they agree, or they volunteer to be seeded, hence starseed, seeded into various timelines and locations of humanity's history and evolution with the intent purpose of either waking people up or evolving consciousness on Earth at any given time. But the life of a starseed is not necessarily an easy one, because when we come to the Earth plane, our memory is wiped. We don't even know what we came here to do. We don't even have a recollection that we've been here before. We have no idea about the wrongs that we have perhaps come to right, or the benefits and blessings that we have come to collect from previous lifetimes. We're veiled. And if you want to learn more about starseeds, I have a video linked down below. And in case you are wondering then, because we're talking about starseeds, so Faye, is Luigi in fact a starseed? No, he's not. But, or better way of saying it is he's not a starseed because his action is not necessarily one that's done to evolve humanity at this time, but his action, allegedly, was done with the purpose of revealing to us just how many of us are awake at this time and creating a sense of community and unity because of it. But despite him not being a starseed, he is, in fact, an evolved soul. So you need to have a certain level of open-mindedness when you're watching this video, because again, one could look at this and be like, but he unalived a person. How evolved of a soul could he be if he unalived a person? To which I say, soul contracts. Sometimes people come into an incarnation to commit an act or an action of some kind, and it's for the betterment of humanity. Even if the act that they have committed is one that involves perhaps taking a person off of the Earth plane. Again, which is why I'm going to reference, if some of us might have had the ability to go back in time and unalive Hitler, might we have done it to keep the millions of people that were unalived alive? What about all of the people that have suffered, ostensibly, allegedly, at the hands of Brian Thompson and the artificial intelligence that they knew was getting it wrong 90% of the time? So even though he is not a starseed, Luigi's soul was shown to me as, in fact, being an evolved soul. One that has also completed all of its soul contracts, all of its soul lessons, as well as completing all of the outstanding karmic shit that it had to remedy or rectify before moving on. And yet, despite his soul completing all of his incarnations loops and being ready to graduate or tap out from the Earth plane, had decided to come back for one last hurrah, one could say. Again, violence is not the answer and I'm not condoning it. Context, soul contracts is everything. And his soul had volunteered to come to the Earth plane as Luigi Mangione, which is why his energy was also so resolute at the beginning of the energy reading to him. Right? I looked into his energy and what did I share with you? His energy is resolute. He's not freaking out. He's not antsy. He's not really surprised by, the fact that he's in police custody at this time. His energy was resolute because he lined up with what he wanted to do and he committed to it. He did, one could say, what he came here to do, because again, I remind you, he volunteered. But also, because his soul volunteered to do this and to take this action on, his life did also include blessings, such as good looks, intelligence, and being born into a well-to-do financial family. So it was a pre-reward, if you will, that his soul had traded to offset the hardships that he would endure, as well as the potential loss of freedom that he may as well endure in the future. And because his soul had traded the temporary freedom for the potential loss of long-term freedom later on, as in being incarcerated, after this, his soul is free and done and gone for good. Because again, he has completed all of his karmic retribution, all of the karmic rebalancing that his soul has to do. He has completed all of his incarnation loops. He has collected all of the blessings that he was going to collect. He has remedied all of the karmic shit that he was going to work through with various different souls through various different lifetimes. His soul was ready to get the fuck out of Dodge. His soul was ready to graduate from the earth plane. He was done. So the reason that I say he is in fact an evolved soul was because his soul could have tapped out and been like, Saya fucking Nara, I'm done with this heavy, dense 3D material earth plane. I'm going on to greener pastures. But no, his soul decided to stay, decided to come back for one last, as I had said, so-called hurrah, because he came to do this thing for the betterment of humanity. But what's the betterment of humanity? It's actually the kicking off of the new era in revealing just how awake we all in fact are. So yes, his soul decided to trade because he knows he's out of here after this lifetime anyway. The evolution of the soul also decided to trade the freedom that he in fact might have had if he had not gone on to do this, with the potential of being incarcerated, because when he is done with this lifetime, he's out of here for good. Evolved soul. Volunteering to come back and do this. Because after this incarnation, he's done for good. He is free forevermore from the harsh lessons and heavy, dense 3D energy that is akin to quicksand. He is free to leave this all behind, and once he is gone, his soul will not know, nor will it care, nor will it matter how history remembers him. Because once we are out of our bodies, there is no level of attachment the way we are attached in the earth plane. So whereas while one is alive, they might be deeply invested into their legacy, one could say, how will history remember me? Will it remember me kindly? Once you are out of your body, there is no attachment to the 3D. So he won't care how history chooses to remember him. Whether he will be called a vigilante or a justice seeker, I can't say the word, an unaliver or a crazy man, he played his part, and the rest actually, in fact, is up to us. What we do with the awareness that we have. Because he did, in fact, help reveal just how many of us are disillusioned with the 3D matrix, as well as how many of us are in fact awake and then can band together. But what we do with that, and what we will continue to do, and how the world will change thereafter, we're actually in fact starting to see how the world is going to change because of this. And how? If it seems like so much about this case actually, in fact, makes little to no sense, surprise, that's actually because of us. So it's not, and I'm going to explain this because this is wild, but it's not actually a fact that so much of the case seems to make no sense, right? Like forethought, change of clothing that he had with him, forethought, false ID, and then leaving the fingerprints on a bottle of water near the crime scene. Going into a McDonald's, like the guy was wanted around the country. There was like a $50,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. And he goes to a McDonald's. Why not lay low? He went to a McDonald's. So if many of the facts of this case just don't seem to line up and make sense, it's actually because of us. And it's not because of the 3D matrix. And I will explain why. We think we make no difference in the grand scheme of things, but we do. And we do because as we continue to evolve and as we continue to energetically ascend, this is revealing a new level of awakenedness out in the world. And the case keeps then changing because the timeline that we're on keeps changing as well. But the timeline that we're on is changing in response to us and our vibration and the degree in which we are in fact awake that is now starting to be revealed. I told you there's a new era kicking off and coming in. And the timeline is changing so fast that the facts of the case don't seem to make sense anymore. But that's because too many of us are awake and we see through it all. So the regular police methods, the regular media corruption, talking point bulletins are no longer working anymore. And when so many people in the world are in fact siding with a vigilante and not the victim of a crime, it is a massive sign of changing times, and the current timeline cannot currently keep up with all the change. His attorney is getting phone calls from people saying, yes, they know he may in fact be guilty. They still want to financially help fund his defense expenses. So when this many people are wanting to side with an perpetrator and not the victim, it's a massive sign that times are changing. We're living through it. We are witnessing the new era that is being ushered in right now. And it's playing out right now in front of us. And that's why so many elements of the case don't seem to make sense. Because as more and more of us are waking up, nay, not just as more and more of us are waking up, as we are becoming more and more vocal about it, and we are connecting with other like-minded people, discussing the case, the timelines are continuing to shift and change. It's kind of like too many people visiting a website, but the web host cannot keep up with all of the web traffic, and therefore the website keeps crashing. So essentially, our awakenedness at this time keeps crashing the current timeline that we are on, thus revealing cracks in the old system. You're seeing the old being dismantling before our eyes. Because whereas, I forget what year it was, again, going back, to Ted Kaczynski, I think it was maybe like the 90s, so many of us were still asleep at that time. Could we really see the, cracks, if there were any cracks in the case? Think about how many cold cases there are. Could the police at the time, or, the online true crime community, could they necessarily see the cracks in the case? Because I predict, and I really don't do predictive videos, but I actually, in fact, predict there's going to be a whole new movement being born in which online enthusiasts and true crime enthusiasts are going to start going back and looking at cold cases or even well-known public cases, and they are going to be able to crack cases that have gone cold, or to uncover and reveal cases in which there was high levels of corruption associated with it. And that's because as we ascend, we're no longer going to be looking at things with our 3D material eyes, but we are going to be looking at things with our 5D eyes. And with the upgraded eyes that we will have, it will enable people to see the truth clearly, because that's what's happening with this case. And that's why so many things don't seem to make sense. So the lyrics in the Leonard Cohen song, quote, "There is a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in," end quote. Our ascension at this time is flooding the dark matrix, old systems, with new ascended vibrations and energy and light, and helping dismantle those old, corrupt, dark systems. We are graduating to a whole new world and a whole new era. And as our vibration continues to rise, the way we see things will continue to change and shift. And as the timelines continue to change and shift as well, it's in response and in reaction to us. It's kind of like good decisions beget further good decisions. As we ascend, the old dark matrix system is no longer a vibrational match for where we're going and how we're ascending. So it has to be dismantled. As our vibration continues to rise, the way we see things will continue to change and shift as we change timelines, but also because, what the fuck did I write here? But also because the eyes we see things through are changing as well. From our 3D eyes to our 5D and beyond eyes. And that is certainly what is happening here. So this concludes the energy reading into Luigi Mangione. The relevance that his past lives made in contributing to his decision to wanting to come back into this lifetime one last time, even though his soul had graduated, volunteering to come back to allegedly commit this crime, even if he didn't commit it. Did this not due to, in part, his good looks and how the reality of his 3D life is shattering a lot of narratives that some people have had? Is this not serving as the ultimate reveal? How many of us are awake? And then through our recognition of our awakenedness, speaking the truth, embracing the truth, stepping into the truth, connecting with other like-minded people that are interested in the truth as well, and thus changing the timeline that we currently are on and setting us forth onto an entirely new era and timeline. And it is one in which it is no longer the movie stars and the rock stars that are the stars, but it's the people that came here to right the wrongs that have been committed and to usher in that whole new era and that whole new timeline that we are stepping into. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope that you have found it to be perhaps thought-provoking, maybe insightful. I remind you to please take what resonates, to leave the rest behind. Admittedly, this is a controversial one. You have to be kind of open-minded to hear the information and not just react negatively to it. So I hope that all of the comments are going to be high vibe. And speaking about high vibe, this is your reminder until next time and every moment in between, you personally, despite what's going on in the world around you, you that's watching this, that's still here, you stay in the high vibration. You are part of dismantling the old system. So congratulations, keep going. So until next time, stay in that high vibration.